Now, families of protesters killed in Iran have told the BBC the authorities are demanding large sums of money for the return of bodies. Relatives say they're being asked to hand over thousands of dollars so they can bury their loved ones. Well, the development comes as we're continuing to build up a picture of the situation in Iran, which is challenging because, of course, there is an ongoing internet blackout. These images show public buses being torched by demonstrators in the capital, Tehran. Well, there have now been weeks of anti-government protests across the country and a brutal crackdown on them by the authorities. Well, businesses in the capital, Tehran, appear to be open, and we have seen some vehicles out on the street. But of course, as we were saying, it's difficult to gauge a true picture of what exactly is happening in the country. That satellite blackout heavily restricting communications. Well, at the UN Security Council, the US ambassador to the UN, Mike Walls, estimated that thousands and even tens of thousands of protesters have now been killed. He also had
unarmed, peaceful people who love their country are taking to the streets in pursuit of their legitimate aspirations for a better future. Well, this is our message. President Donald J. Trump and the United States of America stands by the brave people of Iran, period. And regardless of its excuses, and you will hear many today from the Iranian regime and from its friends, the regime is solely responsible for the economic misery of the Iranian people and the repression of their freedom, and they will be held accountable.
Iran's ambassador to the UN has accused America of hypocrisy, saying it had a track record of foreign interventions disguised as humanitarian missions. And they said that Washington, in their view, was acting at the behest of the Israeli government. He also laid out what he described as violence by protesters.
A significant number of police officers were killed or severely injured. These heavy casualties demonstrate the extreme brutality of terrorist elements. The situation is, in fact, very simple. The United States regime and its accomplices, particularly the Israeli regime, cannot evade responsibility for the innocent blood that has been shed in my country. Unable to achieve their objectives through the 12-day war of aggression against Iran in June 2025, they have now seek to pursue the same goals through political destabilization, internal unrest, and chaos. This strategy relies on manufacturing casualties, spreading false and inflated figures, and creating a pretext for foreign intervention.
Well, our chief international correspondent, Lise Doucette, gave us her assessment about what she thinks might come next for Iran.
1 year in power for President Trump, his second term of office, has told all of us that, in his own words, he makes up his mind at the last minute. He likes to keep people guessing, and he likes to win. And that's what he said about Iran. He says, I want to win the end game. But we don't know what the end game is for President Trump when it comes to Iran. There was, over the last 48 hours, this build-up, all the cautionary steps being taken in the region, including pulling out non-essential military personnel from Britain, from the UK, from the Al Udeid military base in Qatar, the US's largest military base. In so many capitals, there was a sense an attack was imminent, and then suddenly President Trump pulled back. We always have to ask, who has President Trump's ear now? Because we've seen in Ukraine how we can veer from one perspective to the next, sometimes in a matter of days, sometimes espousing views like Russia's, sometimes being sympathetic to Ukraine. It seems to be becoming clear, Regini, that his crucial allies in the Gulf, including Qatar and Saudi Arabia, they basically got on the phone and said, don't attack. What is your end game? Are you trying to end the regime in Iran? A few military strikes is not going to do that. There are even reports in American and Israeli media that Prime Minister Netanyahu of Israel said the same thing, that you don't have enough military assets. You should wait until the moment is right. So right now, we can assume that nothing is off the table. President Trump has already announced new sanctions a few days ago. He announced sanctions yesterday, announced tariffs a few days ago. This is not over. Perhaps phase one of this crisis is over, but there could be many phases to come.
Elise, let's talk about what's happening on the ground. We're reporting this morning that families of the many killed in those protests have been told that they have to pay up large sums of money to get their loved ones' bodies back, just so that they can give them a dignified funeral. There's that, and there's also reports that we're hearing that perhaps some of that brutal crackdown has eased off a bit. I just wanted to get a sense of what you are hearing from your sources about what you understand is happening on the ground.
We should begin by emphasizing the almost near total internet blackout is now in its second week. Iran has shut down communications in previous waves of unrest, but not like this. Technical experts are talking about a kill switch where you can pretty well shut down almost the whole country. And this time it includes not just the global internet, but also the intranet that is used in Iran and telephone lines. Although we understand telephone lines going out of the country, but not coming in, have now been restored. So we don't have a full picture of what is happening, but enough is getting out in terms of videos, in terms of voice messages, including being sent to the BBC Persian service, are giving us these kind of accounts. BBC Persian has done a story about families going to the morgue, those horrible images that we've seen, and they've been shown on state TV as well, people desperately searching for the bodies of their loved ones. BBC has been told that there have been cases where families are told, if you want the body of your son, your daughter, your loved one, you have to pay. Or you can sign a statement saying that they were martyrs. In other words, they were fighting, protesting on the side of the government. All the reports, so there's a few scattered reports this morning that perhaps in some far corners of Iran that people are still daring to go out to the streets, but for a few days now, it has seemed that the use of lethal force, and this time it is also unprecedented, the intensity of the ferocity of the force being used by the Iranian authorities had largely emptied the streets of that roar from Iranians marching, calling for change. Has it gone away? We're hearing people are chanting from their homes. There's certainly the heat of the steam may have got out of it, but the anger is still burning, and everyone is waiting and watching.
That's our chief international correspondent, Lise Doucet, with her latest assessment on where she thinks things will go next when it comes to Iran.